Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really interesting challenge in the gear world. How do you get that big, expensive studio rack sound into, well, a tiny little pedal?
Yeah, it's a classic problem.
And we're focusing on one specific example, the MXR M300 Reverb. Came out in 2016, and it kind of changed the game for compact digital effects.
It really did. So this deep dive, our mission really, is to figure out the engineering behind that. How did this pedal get such a reputation almost overnight for being, super quiet, really lush, genuinely studio grade?
Especially from MXR, right? Known more for their classic analog stuff.
Exactly. So we want to unpack the architecture that let them pull off this high-fidelity digital sound in such a small box.
And the origin story is actually pretty key here. The first sort of nugget we need to look at is the collaboration. This wasn't just MXR working alone.
No, definitely not. It was a team effort.
It involved their analog engineers, obviously, but also the DSP team from Line 6, their sister brands under Dunlop, right?
Right, and that Line 6 link is absolutely critical. Sometimes people miss that. That's why the M300 could sort of jump straight to the top in terms of how complex and good the reverb algorithms sounded.
So they set a high bar from the start.
Oh, yeah. They wanted true studio quality, proper true stereo ins and outs, and, this is important, an interface that didn't need menus. Just simple, set it and play. Big sound, simple feel.
Okay, let's dig into that architecture then, because that design choice, that's really why the M300 sounds, well, different from a lot of other digital pedals from that era. Usually when you talk high-fidelity digital processing, you risk latency, maybe phase issues when you mix wet and dry signals. How did they solve that without needing a massive enclosure?
Okay, the absolute core of it is the analog dry-through path. That's the secret weapon, you could say.
Analog dry-through, okay.
Yeah, so your original instrument signal, it gets split.
Yeah.
The main dry part never, ever gets converted to digital. It stays pure analog straight through the pedal, untouched.
So when they talk about analog warmth, it's not just marketing speak. It's literally baked into the design. Your core tone, the attack, the clarity doesn't get digitized.
Precisely. Now, at the same time, the wet signal, the reverb effect itself, that gets processed by this custom DSP engine derived from Line 6.
Yeah.
And it's running at really high resolution, 24-bit, 96 kilohertz.
Okay, hold on. For someone maybe not deep into digital audio specs, why was 2496 such a big deal for a compact pedal back in 2016? Weren't others using lower rates?
Oh, absolutely. Many were. The 96 kilohertz sample rate means the digital part can capture and reproduce the really high frequencies in the reverb tail much more accurately. That gives you that smooth, lush decay that doesn't sound, grainy or metallic as it fades out.
Right, more natural.
Yeah. And the 24-bit part, that gives you huge dynamic range, which means it's incredibly quiet. That's why people call it noiseless. The noise floor is just way, way down.
Okay, that covers the quality. But I'm still thinking about that physics thing. If the analog dry signal is instant, but the digital wet signal needs even a tiny bit of time for that 96 kilohertz processing, how do they mix back together without sounding slightly off? The phase issue.
Right, and that's where the MXR analog expertise really shows, with the high-quality converters and the low-noise amps they used. Even though the dry path skips conversion, the M300 is designed to, perfectly compensate for that tiny latency in the wet path.
Ah, clever.
Yeah, the blend circuit lines them up perfectly before they hit the stereo outputs. So you avoid that thin, phasey sound, that comb filtering you sometimes get when mixing analog dry and digital wet. It takes really careful tuning to get that right.
So it's that technical detail that lets it have both the pristine digital effects and keep the core tone solid. And there are practical features too, right? Stuff that confirms it's meant for serious use.
Definitely. True stereo I/O, left mono, and you can get really wide stereo images. And the bypass options are great. You can choose true bypass, so it's totally out of the circuit when off. Or buffered bypass. That gives you trails mode, where the reverb decay fades out naturally even after you switch the pedal off. Super useful.
Yeah, I like trails.
And then there's that TRS input jack. You can plug in an expression pedal to control stuff in real time, or hook up an external foot switch to change modes or presets without touching the pedal itself. Adds flexibility without cluttering the top.
Speaking of the top, let's move to section 2, the user experience. Because for all this heavy-duty DSP going on inside, the M300 looks incredibly simple. No menus, no screen, just 3 knobs and that one button. It felt like a real breakthrough in usability.
It's brilliant, really. Total minimalism. You got decay for the length, tone for brightness or darkness. It's basically a high-pass filter on the reverb and blend, mixing the wet effect with that pure analog dry signal.
Simple enough.
But the real character comes from the 6 modes. And you select those with that little push button right under the MXR logo LED.
And the LED changes color, right? That's the key. Let's walk through them. Starting with the kind of essential ones MXR had to get right. Blue light.
Blue as plate. That's your classic studio sound. Think of those huge old EMT 140 metal plates creating this really dense, smooth reverb. The M300's plate is known for being super dense and having this very polished, even decay. Sits really well in a mix.
I always found the plate great with distortion. Adds space without getting muddy.
Exactly, yeah. It handles high gain really well. Okay, click the button again, light turns green. That's spring.
Ah, the vintage amp sound?
Surf rock territory.
Totally, that classic splash and bounce. And what's cool is the algorithm actually has some subtle modulation built in to mimic the drip, and the physical quirks of real spring tanks makes it feel lively, not stiff like some digital springs can be.
Nice. Okay, moving away from vintage. The utility sound.
Yeah.
Yellow light.
Yellow is room. Think realism here. It's tight, natural, like the sound of a well-miced small studio space. This is often the always-on kind of reverb for just adding a bit of subtle depth.
And because of that analog dry path, exactly. It's fantastic for stuff like acoustic guitar or bass where you absolutely need to keep the definition, but just add a little air.
Makes sense. All right, now into the more lush and dimensional stuff. Light blue.
Bright blue is mod. So think a big hall reverb, but with chorus-like modulation woven into the decay tails. It gets dreamy and wide almost instantly.
Ah, for those big ambient chords or arpeggios.
Perfect for that. Gives you that expensive hi-fi kind of dimensional sound.
Okay, now the 2 big ones. The ambient modes that really flex that 2496 processing power. Purple.
Purple is epic. And, well, the name fits. This is maximum reverb territory. It uses multiple modulated delays layered into the reverb itself, creating this huge evolving decay with a ton of movement.
So cinematic stuff, shoegaze.
Definitely post-rock soundscapes.
Man.
Anywhere you want the reverb texture to be almost like another instrument.
And finally, the one that's maybe the most unique. Red light, pad. This feels like more than just reverb.
Oh, it absolutely is. The pad mode is pretty groundbreaking for a compact pedal. It basically acts like a synth. It listens to the harmonics of what you play and then generates this evolving, sustained harmonic bed underneath your notes. It can turn your guitar or whatever you plug in into this ambient drone machine.
Wow. Okay. And here's where we get that deep dive nugget, right? Because that pad mode, simple as it looks on the outside.
It's incredibly complex under the hood. The source material confirms it. That pad algorithm, it's secretly running 3 separate reverb engines all at the same time, in parallel.
3 engines.
Yeah. One does pitch-shifted shimmer effects. Another handles deep sub-octave diffusion that gives it that massive low-end weight. And the third creates the main ambient bloom. It's a crazy amount of processing power packed in there.
All controlled by 3 knobs and a red light.
That's the Line 6 DSP magic, right? Making something incredibly complex feel simple to use.
Amazing. Okay, section 3. Left take about why this pedal, even though it's from 2016, still really matters. Its features make it super versatile, don't they?
They absolutely do, which is why it has such a strong legacy. It's moved beyond just being a guitar pedal.
Right. It's more like a general purpose audio tool now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's so quiet, true stereo, low latency. It's genuinely considered studio grade. People use it in actual recording studios all the time. That selectable trails mode is perfect for mixing and overdubbing, letting the decay ring out naturally between takes.
And we mentioned it earlier, but that analog dry-through is a huge deal for things other than guitar, especially bass.
Vital for bass, yeah. Keeping that low-end solid is everything for bass players. The analog dry path guarantees it, so you can use modes like room or plate to add space without turning the low frequencies into mud. That's a big win, engineering-wise.
Plus, with stereo inputs, it's just perfect for keyboards, synths, drum machines. I bet that pad mode sounds incredible on a simple synth patch.
Oh yeah, it can take a basic, maybe even dull electronic sound and just instantly transform it into this wide cinematic texture. The versatility is just huge. You can see it in the settings people use. Like, you could set the yellow room mode with decay barely on, maybe 9 o'clock, for just a subtle studio vibe. Or you could crank the purple epic mode with decay maxed out for this massive, almost infinite cinematic swell. Huge range.
So where does it sit now compared to the competition? You know, pedals like the Strymon Blue Sky, the TC Hall of Fame 2, Boss RV6, those are big names.
Well, the M300 consistently gets praised for that sound quality versus size factor. Some competitors might offer, more algorithms or deeper editing options, but very few compact reverbs really nail that specific blend of the analog dry warmth, the 2496 digital clarity, and that dead simple usability.
So it holds its own.
Definitely. You still see it on tons of pro pedal boards because, space is always tight, but you can't compromise on sound quality.
And thinking about its legacy, it wasn't just a successful pedal for MXR, was it? It felt like a turning point.
It absolutely was. The M300 proved MXR could hang with the boutique DSP brands. It really kicked off their whole modern digital effects era. Think about pedals like the M305 tremolo that came later. It successfully blended that analog feel with digital power in a way musicians really responded to. Premium sound without the complexity or the huge footprint.
Right.
So summing it all up, the M300's success really comes down to managing those two kind of conflicting goals. Powerful, complex digital processing, but wrapped in this incredibly simple, user-friendly package. It basically made high-end reverb accessible and easy.
It really did. Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. How much complexity do we really need on the surface of a tool for it to deliver top-tier results? Especially when you consider that one of the most powerful processor-hungry features in this whole pedal, that pad mode, is driven by 3 hidden parallel engines, all controlled by just one knob and a colored light.
Yeah, something to think about.
Definitely. Think about that next time you're faced with a pedal covered in menus and submenus.